is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea, then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Emily Ferrier, here to bring you my favorite weird news stories that have kept me up until the wee hours of the morn. Alright, so starting us off for this one, I thought I would try to incorporate something that is a true passion of mine, and that passion is swordplay. So the title of this article read, "Man requests trial by combat with Japanese swords to settle custody battle with his ex-wife." Noble, romantic, insane? Let's dive in. A Kansas man asked in an Iowa court to grant his motion for trial by combat so that he can meet his ex-wife and her attorney on the field of battle where he will quote-unquote, rend their souls from their corporal bodies. The man in question, David Ostrom, 40 years old, of Paola, Kansas. I'm sorry, I'm not American. I am, but I don't live there. Claims in court documents that his ex-wife, Bridget Ostrom, 38, destroyed him legally. He asked the Iowa District Court to give him 12 weeks lead time to source or forge a katana, according to the Herald. The court record stated, "To this day, trial by combat has never been explicitly banned or restricted as a right in the United States, and it was used as recently as 1818 in British court." But that is British court, and, they're a little bit weird there. Ostrom told the Des Moines Register that he got the idea after learning about a case in 2016 in which New York Supreme Court Justice Philip Minerdo acknowledged that duels had not been abolished. Now, just because something hasn't been abolished probably doesn't mean that you need to try it, although I really do appreciate the effort that he went to make this happen. How he thought he would be able to, as not a swordsman and someone that only found out about this rule in 2016, how he'd be able to just pick up and forge a katana, I'm just honestly just impressed by, I think, So Ostrom, their surnames are both Ostrom. David was frustrated with his ex-wife's attorney, Matthew Hudson, and he said that this was the only rational solution. "I've met with Mr. Hudson," this is David's quote, "I think I've met Mr. Hudson's absurdity with my own absurdity," Ostrom said. And he said that his ex-wife can either choose her attorney as champion or a stand-in fighter. I actually have quite a bit of experience in sword fighting, fake sword fighting, but sword fighting nonetheless. I think I'd be able to, hold my own, but if you could pick anyone to stand in for you for a sword fight, who would it be? Would it be someone that you know? I feel like my mother would harbor enough fire to fight my ex-husband, but But maybe my grandmother. I feel like if I was to be wronged, my grandmother would be the right person to step in. She's a very fiery person. I just think that is absolutely fantastic that he's able to choose his own champion, but David's confident enough to be the champion on his end. I admire the confidence, I'll say that. Hudson's response was to field a resistance motion. And the file corrected Ostrom's spelling, right? Should you be taunting a man wielding a sword? So Hudson argued that the result of the duel might be worse than the money lost on property tax and custody issues. It should be noted that because the U.S. and Iowa constitutions do not specifically prohibit battling another person with a deadly katana sword, it does prohibit a court sitting in equity from ordering the same, Hudson wrote. Hudson then asked the court to have Ostrom go for a psychological evaluation. And you know what? I sort of support that, So Ostrom, in his response to Hudson's response, admitted to the misspelling, but argued that he has no history of mental issues. I mean, perhaps he doesn't. In a way, he uses a set of logic and thought out, proposals in this argument. I mean, he really did. He went deep, he was looking into the laws and making sure that it was all still legal, and then also that it was quite absurd, to prove his point. So, fair enough. So, historically, trial by combat doesn't always end in death. But it can also end when a party, quote-unquote, cries craven. Or, oh, no, stop it. Stop trying to hit me with that thing, That is a solid alternative. The respondent counsel have proven themselves to be cravens by refusing to answer the call to battle. Thus, they should lose this motion by default, Ostrom wrote, before suggesting proceeding with blunted practice style of swordplay. So that's kind of nice. He gave a solid alternative. He was like, okay, you don't want to do the actual fight to the death? That's absolutely fine. We'll just go for a bit of a play, a little bit of a back and forth, A little partay, give and take. I think that's actually quite noble of him. And quite generous, I'm not sure how you would decide who wins in a katana sword battle. It's not fencing, is it? You're not going for the points on the body. I guess you could if it was a blunted sword. That still sounds quite painful, though. Those things are heavier than you think they are. Anyway, the court did not rule on either party's motions. I guess they thought that the fighting was a little bit too ridiculous on both sides. Ostrom also, yes. So Ostrom stated that he doesn't actually have any experience with sword fighting. This man that proposed this battle, this trial by swordplay, has no experience sword fighting. Now, I don't know if you've ever wielded a sword. It's not really something you can just pick up and try. It's actually very difficult, and it's heavy, and there's a lot of complex motions, and there's different ways of sword fighting with a katana specifically. It's just, that's male confidence at its finest, isn't it? Oh, I could probably just pick it up and do it, it'd be fine. Yeah, I could just wield a sword. I could just wield a sword and win this legal battle. That is male confidence. Ostrom doesn't anticipate that the judge will let his request go forward. He just wanted an answer anyway. And when asked if he was serious about the dueling offer, Ostrom said, "If Mr. Hudson's willing to do it, I will meet him. But I don't think he has the guts to do it." This is some playground level taunting, isn't it? You know, this is something that a bully says. I mean, but on the other, I think I'm actually on Ostrom's side. I really do. I mean, it's a very bold move, isn't it? And to that I say, touché. So, I think that's it on the sword battle section here. If anybody has heard of this happening in other states, please let us know in the comments, because I am absolutely fascinated by this and would love to hear more. So speaking of these weird loopholes in the law, when we come back, I would like to talk about a bill proposed to ban the use of cell phones for peoples under 21. And all that after the break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. So, before the break, we talked about swordplay, settling custody battles. And now we're going to turn to a strange proposal for a bill of law. So this bill was introduced in the Vermont Senate, and it would make it illegal for anyone under the age of 21 to use or possess a cell phone in that state. Punishable by, it's a misdemeanor crime, it's punishable by a maximum of a year behind bars, or $1,000 fine, or both, for the use of a cell phone, just for the use of it or possession. The legislation links cell phone use by people under the age of 21 to a rise in driving fatalities, suicides, mass shootings, and terrorism. I see where this logic comes from. I really do. I mean, especially with the driving fatalities. Because anyone under the age of 21, they haven't driven enough to understand the rules of the road. And I don't think anybody should ever text and drive. I think it's just inherently stupid. Like, it's distracted driving. How do you not know that it's distracted driving? Like, it is as bad as, like, being under, like, using a substance and then driving, I think. But, like, people that are under 21 think that they can do it because they think, you know, like, I'm glued to my phone. I use it way more than anyone over the age of 21. I know how to multitask. I can't even walk and use my phone, you know? Like, I'll for sure walk into a pole. And it's very stupid to be driving while texting. So that I agree with. But just, you know, just make it illegal to use your phone, you know, while driving. You don't need to... Because, like, there is a safety issue, I think, with banning a cell phone. Like, I had a cell phone in high school. They were introduced... Like, cell phones were quite new when I was in high school. But I did have one because I went to high school outside of my city. And it was a safety thing. Like, I needed to be able to contact people. You know, if something happened, if I got lost, if whatever. I didn't really use it a whole lot at that age, but it did make me feel safer. With the suicides and mass shootings and terrorism, I mean, there is a huge amount of bullying going on with cell phones, but I do think that that's a social media thing. I think that it might not be the actual cell phone, because if you could just, like, call and text and that sort of thing, like, you can disable apps, and that might be a better solution. But the social media is really, like, weighing on on the youths of America and elsewhere. It puts a lot of pressure on a So I see that. And here's actually a quote from the bill. The internet and social media, accessed primarily through cell phones, are used to radicalize and recruit terrorists, fascists, and other extremists. That I didn't know. I mean, using Instagram to find a terrorist seems insane to me. But then again, a lot of things about social media seem insane to me. I don't like the idea of terrorists wanting to gain likes. I guess social media is the best way to reach out to any group of insane people. Like flat earthers have loads of Facebook groups. Senator John Rogers, a Democrat, introduced the bill to make a point. I have no delusions that it's going to pass. I wouldn't probably vote for it myself. I think I wouldn't vote for it either. Anyway, he said based on the information presented in his bill, a cell phone is much more dangerous than a gun. I don't think I'd go that far. I mean, guns literally kill people, you know? I don't think... It's not like a cell phone directly kills you. Well, unless it's a Stephen King novel. And a gun literally does. But it's an interesting proposal. It's just certainly something to think about. And maybe there should be sort of, maybe not as intense as that punishment, but maybe there should be a couple of laws for people's under a certain age. You know, there's a drinking limit, there's an age to get your license and that sort of thing. Maybe there should be an age before you can get a cell phone. Like when I see an 8-year-old with a cell phone, I think, oh God, you know, I don't think you should have that. Anyway, thinking about crazy proposed bills, I found a list of odd proposals for bills that never came to fruition, and I thought I would read that to you. Number 1, designating September as Gospel Music Heritage Month and honoring gospel music for its valuable and long-standing contributions to the culture of the United States. I actually think that would be great. Number 2, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States to repeal the 22nd Amendment and thereby removing the limitation on the number of terms an individual may serve as president. Thank God this never happened. We'd be in for it. Number 3, to direct the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to carry out a pilot program on dog training therapy. I actually think that this would be amazing. To have veterans have like therapy dogs, I think that should be a thing. That'd be awesome. And number 4, a priority list to specify the priority of obligations of the United States government. You know what? That's actually not a bad. There should be like a priority, you know? You know, like, and I don't know if you guys know anything about Canadian law, but in Ontario, there was a law passed so that we can drink at 9 a.m. now, and that came before some bill proposals for education, and I think that you know what, we should have switched those ones around. Number 5, to end membership of the United States in the United Nations. I mean, thank God that never passed. Number 6, to reauthorize the African Elephant Conservation Act, the Rhinoceros and Tiger Conservation Act of 1994, and the Asian Elephant Conservation Act of 1997, and the Lion King Act, which I assume is the right to lift anybody into the air via their armpits. Number 7, to apply to Buy American Act to products purchased for the use of Congress and everything bearing a congressional seal. Number 8, to ensure that consumers receive notification regarding food products from crops, livestock, or poultry raised on a land in which contained sewage, sludge, or radioactive ooze. I mean, that should definitely be a law, and it's kind of shocking that it's not, and I wonder how many of us are going to turn into a mutant from X-Men. Number 9, to waive certain prohibitions with respect to nationals of Cuba coming to the United States to play organized professional baseball. I mean, for sure, right? We need that. Number 10, to lift the trade embargo on Cuba for tobacco and other purposes, see above. Number 11, emergency chiropractors, authorizing the appointment of chiropractors to regular and reserve corps of the Public Health Service Commission Corps. So, in the case of national emergency, you can have your back cracked. It's actually not bad. Number 12, drug testing for drug task force officers to require screening of law enforcement officers for others acting under color of law participating in drug task forces. Actually, that just makes sense. Don't get high on your own stash, Number 13, a new castle to establish a castle, National Historic Site, in St. Croix, United States, Virginia Island, to hide the Holy Grail, I assume. Number 14, a ban on baby switching, to establish and implement security procedures to reduce the likelihood of baby switching, aka gene pool Yankee swap. Number 15, a determination on whether or not Filipinos who helped in the U.S. World War require the security of Army to determine the validity of the claims of Filipinos that they performed military service on behalf of the United States. I mean, come on. They did. Let's move on. Number 16, jobs in the ocean, to direct the national security. I'm going to start. We're running out of time here. I'm going to start just summing them up. So jobs in the ocean, for Finding Nemo, I assume. Number 17, a jaywalking database for the most low-key criminals. Number 18, an abolishment of the IRS. No comment. Number 19, a combination of the Navy and the Marines. Number 20, a mandatory checklist for the House of Representatives. Number 21, a congressional payback to America to reduce federal debt. And number 22, a ban on treasury crunk. You know what? Not bad. Anyway, which laws of those would you like to see come into fruition? That's it for the weird laws, and when we come back, an ancient alien burial ground.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back. When you left me, we were talking about weird laws in the United States, and now we're switching right over to aliens. An ancient alien burial ground site was discovered in Croatia, featuring 3 skulls, 2 of which are artificially deformed skulls, and each of those skulls had been melded into different shapes, possibly a way to show that they belong to a specific cultural group. So, this artificial cranial deformation has been practiced in many parts of the world in the past, shaping a person's skull when they, for different purposes, perhaps with a tight headdress, bandages, rigid tools, when you still got that squishy baby head, when it's still forming. So, from indicating social status to beauty pageants or conehead competitions, the earliest known instance of this practice occurred 12,000 years ago in ancient China. But it's unclear if the practice spread from there or if it emerged independently in these other parts of the world. So in this case, archaeologists found the 3 skeletons in a burial pit in Croatia's archaeological site in 2013. And between 2014 to now, they've analyzed the skeletons, which revealed that the skeletons were all males who died between the ages of 12 and 16. Each showed evidence of malnutrition, but they did say that that's not necessarily the cause of death, because, of course, we all know that young boys all eat improperly. They could have had some disease, they killed them quickly, and didn't leave any trace on their bones, such as the plague. Turns out the plague doesn't leave any trace on your bones. I didn't know that. So senior author Mario Novak, a bioarchaeologist at the Institute of Anthropological Research in Croatia, said that there was nothing found to reveal the boy's social status. I find that really interesting. Because, like, if this was something that reveals social status, this, like, binding and creating of the heads, like, you would assume they'd be kind of buried with some form of riches or something to take on to the afterlife, right? The analysis also revealed that the three had lived between 415 and 560 AD in a time that corresponds to the Great Migration period. It's a turbulent period in Europe's history, Novak told Life Science, right after the fall of the Roman Empire, new populations of people and cultures arriving in Europe, and becoming the basis for modern Europe nations. So, the foundations of Europe, right, as we know it now. The EU, or Britain's ex-boyfriend, right? So the DNA analysis of this ancient trio reveals that one of them had West Eurasian ancestry, another Near Eastern ancestry, and a third East Asian ancestry. I find it quite fascinating that these sort of three separate cultures ended up practicing similar binding practices. Like, it is quite cool how different cultures, like, might have independently come up with these things, or maybe it was when they came together as a collective, they sort of took on each other's cultures quite quickly. So the boy who was of Near Eastern ancestry had a circular, erect type cranial. Like, the front part was flattened, and the height of the skull was increased. It does look like a cone, or like an alien from the movie Alien. Like, it's quite, like, rigidly flattened like that. The boy from West Eurasia actually didn't have any deformation, so it's interesting that they were found side by side like that. And the boy with the East Asian ancestry had a skull with an oblique deformation, which means that it was, like, elongated diagonally and upwards. It's really fascinating to look at the skull. So if you do get a chance, I would take a look at the pictures to see. And it does look alien. It does look alien. If you were born with the deformation, that's one thing. Obviously, it's actually quite interesting and fascinating and kind of cool to have, like, a different formed skull. But the idea of practicing, like, purposefully deforming skulls, I don't know, that's a little bit shocking to me. I guess because of my biases, because of my Western upbringing, my, like, the beauty standards that are set out for us. We don't bind a skull, it's not something that we practice as a culture. It's quite interesting that was something that they thought was a beauty standard, a social status thing. I guess elongating your skull, like, implies a larger brain, maybe larger capacity for learning. So Novak said, we propose that different skull deformation types in Europe were used as a visual indicator of an association with a cultural group. So I guess these three things, these three different cultures were shown by the three different skulls. So maybe it was that the West Eurasia culture didn't practice this type of binding. It's quite interesting to see that side by side. I mean, that is, like, quite a fascinating little phenomenon there. And I wonder, like, if those skulls were actually left there from that time, or maybe, like, a past culture had found these skulls and wanted to study them, and then that's why they were all laid together. It's kind of cool to think about these things. It's yet unclear which cultural groups they belonged to specifically. Though the East Asian boy could have been a Hun, so I suppose there's some sort of evidence in other archaeological discoveries that support that. So they're now, like, the team is now trying to find other samples of cranial deformation from Europe to understand the phenomenon on a larger scale. It's such a small scale right now, it's very hard to sort of determine, like, what these practices were done for and who they were done by, etc. A deformed skull dating back between 200 BC and 100 BC sparked a possible alien vibe. This skull belonged to an individual of the Nazca culture, which flourished along the Peruvian coast. So this is actually a separate article that I found that kind of supported this possible deformation, possibly this like cranial binding. So the belief is that this elongated skull resulted from the practice of head binding as well, before the bones had solidified, much like the other one. It's not proven yet because there aren't enough examples, but this does seem to be consistent with these skulls that have been found. It's not the only practice of changing and manipulating the body that we've seen in past cultures. You know, there was the lip stretching, there's earlobe elongating, which we do practice in America as well. We have, like, you know, the spacers that people put into their ears. Of course, there's foot binding in some Asian cultures, skull forming, and of course the Kardashian lip kits that we do. These crazy things, you know, that change the way that we look and behave, and we've had them for a significant amount of time. So, is this actually the craziest practice that we've heard of? I'd like to know what the craziest practice of physical manipulation is that you guys know, and let us know in the comments. I'd really like to hear about that. So that's it on our manipulation practices. And when we come back from the break, more on aliens or evidence of aliens, but this time from an astronaut. More of that when we come back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. So, before the break, we were talking about ancient evidence of aliens that turned out to be humans, but now we're going to talk about actual aliens in current news. So, Dr. Helen Sherman, the first British astronaut in space, says that there's no interpretation other than that aliens do exist. She's quoted by saying, "There are so many billions of stars out there in the universe that there must be all sorts of different forms of life." She said that although aliens might not be made up of carbon and nitrogen like humans, quote, "it's possible that they're here right now and we simply can't see them." That, to me, I'm sorry, shudder-inducing. They're here right now. Like, they could be in this room while I'm recording. I probably shouldn't say that. I am alone right now, and that is very scary to me. So after responding to a radio advertisement where she was asking for applicants to be, or that was asking for applicants to be the first British space explorer, Helen was selected for the mission live on ITV on the 25th of November 1989, ahead of nearly 13,000 other applicants. This is a very impressive woman, okay? She is brilliant. She is hardworking. She's an astronaut. Of course she is. Of course she is. You know, like, this is actually, like, I think a quote from her and, like, a story from her really bears weight more than any, like, crazy conspiracy theorist, because she's an astronaut. So, you know, when an astronaut has something to say on aliens, who am I to say otherwise, right? They're like the A-list celebs of the science world. And they've been played by every, you know, white male A-list celeb in the world. So when an astronaut calls alien, we should listen, right? So I actually have a list of other astronauts, other than Helen, that have said things on aliens. So Leroy Chow has completed 4 missions into space, performed 6 spacewalks, and he said that a recent discovery of a possible Earth-like planet confirms his suspicions that the universe is full of alien life. What does he mean by that? Confirms his... Did he see aliens? Or was it just sort of a feeling that he had, like a presence? Do you know when you, like if you're, like, in a dark room or something, like, you feel like there's other people there, even though you can't see them? You know what I mean? Like, you feel like a presence. Until the lights come on, and you're like, ah, Mom, I didn't know you were also getting a midnight snack. You know, like, that kind of thing. Alan Bean, an astronaut who walked on the moon, says, quote, "Why I know aliens haven't visited Earth." He's the 4th person to walk on the moon, and he doesn't doubt for a second that we're not alone. He has a theory also about why aliens haven't yet visited Earth. So there's more on that on News AU if you want to take a look at that, because I am intrigued. Gordon Cooper said that he saw flying saucers spying on a secret airbase where experimental American aircrafts were being tested. I believe that these extraterrestrial vehicles and their crews are visiting this planet from other planets, which are a little more technically advanced than we are on Earth. So he told this to the UN in 1984. This is a while ago. We may first have to show them. We have learned to resolve our problems by peaceful means rather than warfare, before we accept it as fully qualified universal team members. I mean, we still haven't fully learned that. I will say that. We still haven't fully learned how to solve problems rationally and peacefully. Humans, of course, still use war as a realistic solution to problems. So I don't think that we're quite at the moral high ground level that we're able to talk to aliens in such a way. Another astronaut, Deke Slayton, reportedly saw a UFO in 1951. It looks like a saucer sitting at a 45-degree angle. This is very common, this shape, this saucer. And it makes me wonder, like, is it a collective hallucination? You know how, like, the mind sees what it wants to see, and when there's, like, times of darkness and that sort of thing. But it's interesting that it's always the same shape. And is that because it is a UFO? Or is it because our minds have been told to look for this saucer-like shape with a 45-degree angle, like the one that's in The Simpsons, you know, and the one that we've seen in various images of quote-unquote UFOs. So Slayton also says, I didn't have any cameras, otherwise I would have just shot some pictures. And at the time, for whatever reason, I just took off climbing. It just took off climbing and then accelerated and disappeared. So, I mean, it always disappears too quickly for people to, like, get images or whatever. And I also saw, recently I saw this, like, image going around the internet of, like, an orb, like a blue orb that was going over these, like, train tracks and then disappearing. And, like, nowadays, because you can manipulate footage so much, it's so much harder for me to believe any video footage, any images, anything like that. But even things that were, like, older images that were shot and older videos that were shot, there's still always ways to doctor them up. And I just think that, like, if aliens were able to come to Earth, they might, I don't know, they might have more of a presence, like, they might have more of a communication. Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually don't doubt that there is alien life, because we can't be arrogant enough to think that human beings and that the planet Earth is the only planet in the entire, like, solar system, in the entire galaxy, universe, and beyond. Like, we can't really believe that we're the only planet that sustains life. Whether we're the only planet that sustains carbon-based life, maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, we talked about in a previous podcast about how plant life is actually much more, like, aware and things like that than we once thought. So, I don't know. There's no way it's not that we're the only form of life, right? Am I crazy? Am I crazy in that? Do you guys agree? Am I talking into the void? Are the aliens out there? Do you have anything to say? Could you like and subscribe? It would be really nice if you could do that for us. Could you promote us on your planet? You know? I don't know. I think if anyone was to know, it would be the astronauts, right? I trust Helen, is what I'm saying. It's very hard not to. She seems like she knows what she's talking about. So is this a conspiracy? Is this reality? Or is this way too much of that space jerky and lack of oxygen? The question still remains, you know? So that is it for our alien topics today. And when we come back, Hannibal ants. We'll learn more about that after the break.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we are back. So I think that we probably exhausted our whole alien material for today. So instead we're going to turn here to the horrors on Earth. I am talking, of course, of these cannibalistic tendencies of insects. Yeah, probably not the left turn you were thinking of. So I was reading about this in Western Poland. Hundreds of thousands of worker ants fell inside an abandoned nuclear bunker and were cut off from the main colony, and they survived for years by eating the bodies of their dead. Yeah. So researchers visited the bunker years after the incident, I suppose, and they described a community of nearly 1 million worker ants. Wood ants, specifically, in case you were wondering. So the main colony remained above ground on a mound atop the bunker's ventilation pipe over the years. And a steady stream of unlucky ants fell through the pipe into the bunker. Since the pipe opened up into the chamber from the ceiling, the ants landed on the floor and could not climb back out, right? Because it was the opening of the pipe. And, of course, there was nothing for the ants to eat inside of this pitch black bunker. So the science hypothesized that the insects survived by eating their dead. And recently, the researchers returned to their bunker to continue the investigation of the trapped ants, looking for evidence that the insects were in fact eating these the corpses of their nestmates. And well, we'll see what they found. So the bunker was once part of a nuclear base in near the German border. Right, so it was used by the Soviet military to store nuclear weapons from the 60s to the 90s, these researchers reported. Quote, during an inspection made in July 2015, we estimated the size of the bunker population to be at least several 100,000 workers, probably close to 1 million. This is what the scientists wrote in a journal of research. So thousands of ants skittered over the bunker floor walls. They were unable to walk on the ceiling where the pipe opening was, which offered the only exit. There were no ant cocoons, larvae, or queens in the bunker, so a queenless colony wasn't actually breeding. Rather, it continued because they were continuously falling through this open pipe where the main colony was active. Do we think it's a little bit cruel that they knew about this and then continued to study it for years instead of trying to stop this phenomenon from happening? I don't know, maybe. I mean, they're insects, but how do we feel about that? So these worker ants would typically branch off, form a new colony without a queen, but the ants trapped in the bunker had no choice. Sorry, they would not do this, but they had no choice, right? Because obviously they were stuck without a queen. So they were just surviving. They just had this survival instinct to keep going, continue their social tasks, but in this extreme environment. So it became an eat or be eaten situation. So for the new study, scientists collected more than 150 dead ants from the cemeteries, these piles and piles and piles of bodies on the floor, near the walls, near the main ant mound. So these bodies with gnaw marks on their abdomens were thought to have been eaten. And sure enough, the vast majority, 93% of the corpses showed signs of being eaten. So the ant solution is kind of grim, but cannibalism apparently is not uncommon in this species. So wood ants are actually known for waging quote-unquote ant wars, right? Battles with each other that are typically fought in early spring when food is scarce, according to the study. So as the corpses of fallen soldiers pile up, workers drag the bodies into their nests to feed their developing young. I'm not sure if this is you eat the blood of the warriors to get stronger sort of thing. Maybe it's a ritual, something it sounds very ancient Greece, doesn't it? This whole thing with feed off of the losers. So apparently nestimate corpses can serve as an important food source, not only in periods of food shortage, the scientists wrote. In the bunker, the corpses served as a never-ending buffet, enabling the ants to survive in a location where normally they wouldn't be able to survive and they would have starved to death. So, wow. Yeah. It's pretty gruesome. They're literally trapped in this sort of in this death trap, this mausoleum where they're surrounded by bodies and bodies of their friends and family, and they have to just sit there and eat them. This is just insane. It's sort of the donors, the family sort of thing that was trapped on a mountain and had to resort to eating the other people trapped on the mountain. It's like that. That is a thing, right? That happened. I'm not hallucinating that. I learned about that in school, but like I talked about on the last one, it could be the Mandela effect, and maybe it didn't happen at all, and I just hallucinated the whole thing. So the study authors also wondered if they could help the trapped ants find their way home. Okay? In 2016, they installed a vertical boardwalk, wooden beam extending from the floor to the entrance of the pipe. So they did actually help, okay? They did actually end up helping, but like years after starting the study. Kind of rude. So when the scientists returned the next year, they found that most of the ants had taken advantage of the new escape route. Most of them. So the bunker that was like hundreds of thousands, like nearly 1 million ants, was almost deserted. So they did learn. And returned to their colony. But I wonder what the colony thought when they came back, Like they came back to the colony and they were like, hey, we've been, eating our friends. What do you think? They actually taste quite good with a little bit of salt. Some fava beans and a nice Chianti, Some scary stuff. I don't think I would want to welcome them back, with loving arms. Doesn't really seem like my thing. So, what are our thoughts on this? On this ant cannibalism, this insecticide, this, this is interesting. I mean, if it is like a natural thing for these wood ants to go to eating their own, if this is like a practice that they do with, they're dead bodies. It's not like they're eating them alive. And it's not like they're killing them. They're just consuming the already perished bodies. And it is like, oh gosh, morality kicking in, isn't it? Survival of the fittest, Wow. How would you feel if you found out that there was a bunker somewhere where a bunch of humans were trapped, and then some of them perished, and then the others ate those? Like that, I think I'd feel weird about that. I don't think I got meat. I don't eat meat regardless, but I don't think that I would be able to eat a body. Just the thought of it is pretty harrowing, isn't it? And this and more in A Bug's Life 2, coming to you in 2021. Ooh, that'd be an interesting sequel, wouldn't it? Bug's Life 2, what happens when they're stuck in the bunker? I think we're probably finished with the ant colony cannibalism topic, so when we return from the break, we're going to have predictions from the past for the year 2020. I'm going to read those out to you when we come back.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. Before the break, we talked about the cannibalistic tendencies of ants in Poland. And now we're doing just a hard turn, okay? We're going to talk about, there's a list of 100 things that were predicted would happen by the year 2020. Okay, so these are 100 things from the past that were predicted for the year 2020. So we're going to talk about it. Have they happened yet? Or will they happen by this year? All right, let's go through the list. There's a lot to get to. There's 100, so we're going to talk about that. Number 1, people have relocated to flying houses. Flying houses sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? Wouldn't that be incredible if you could just like pick up and fly around and go anywhere? 2, houses cleaned by water hoses and flash dryers. Oh, beautiful, wouldn't it? Self-cleaning house. That'd be the ideal. That would save a lot on your bills. Number 3, houses and furniture made of steel. Number 4, all houses have completely fireproof and waterproofed themselves. Not quite, but that would be perfection, wouldn't it? Number 4, all houses, number 5, flying cars. Close. Number 6, roads being replaced by pneumatic tubes. Not close. And I think that would get very messy and very convoluted. 7, intelligent apes from breeding programs doing all of our manual labor. I think I might be one of those. Number 8, humans arrive on Mars. Close to that. 9, telepathy being commonplace. I mean, no, but I do have a weird connection to my sister that could be construed as telepathy. 10, teleportation of people and things. Dope. Would love that. Let's get that going by 2021. 11, portable portals. 12, physical mail delivered by rockets. Don't need mail anymore. I mean, we have email, so that's better. 13, personal helicopters. Get me one of those, please. 14, private supersonic jets. Just for the 1%. Obviously. 15, the letters C, X, and Q removed from the alphabet. Don't know what they had against C, X, and Q. I think that they're dope letters, especially X. It's very cool. It's very satisfying to say. Also Q, actually. Come on. 16, women to look like bodybuilders. Nailed that one. 17, human feet to become just like one big toe. That's the stuff nightmares are made of. 18, humans using biologically added photosynthesis. I don't really know how that would benefit us. 19, disposable socks. I mean, any socks are disposable if you commit enough. 20, no buttons, pockets, collars, or ties. We don't really use ties anymore. Those are pretty well obsolete. 21, men never shave. Yeah, baby, welcome to the hipster beard. 22, electronic voting from home. That would be a good one, wouldn't it? That'd be so much easier, voting from home. I think that we should get that going. 23, tobacco to be out of fashion. It pretty well is. 24, coffee and tea to be out of fashion. Never. 25, replacement tooth banks. Okay. 26, everyone to be a vegetarian. Not yet, but nearly. 27, all meat is lab-grown. Not all, but there is lab-grown meat now. 28, nanobots to make eating optional. Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? That would save you so much time. 29, meals that are pill. Another one would save you so much time. I don't know how you would get enough calories in that, though. That is, you could probably get, the vitamins and the nutrients, but... Number 30, robot therapists. Well, mine seems to be robotic. 31, nuclear-powered vacuum cleaners. That sounds stupid. That sounds dangerous. That's Chernobyl waiting to happen. Number 32, no one needs to work. Wouldn't that be the dream? Number 33, everyone is rich. That would make my life a lot easier. Number 34, everyone is able to predict the future. I mean, I don't know that would help anyone, because then what would be the point of living it? 35, faster than light travel. Oh, wouldn't that make your commute easier? 36, a disintegration ray. I would use that too often. Number 37, a shrink ray. I'd probably use that too often. 38, a Dyson sphere. I'm not sure what that is. 39, working hoverboards. Those are sort of happening. 40, time travel. Nope. 41, invisible cloaking. Harry Potter did it. 42, storing our minds in computers. I store everything in my computer. I'm not sure if it's not quite my mind, but nearly. 43, human cloning. No, but we got a sheep. 44, the Matrix. Talked about this. Don't want to think about it anymore. 45, all cars are self-driving. Actually, yeah. Not all, but yeah. 46, urine replaces gasoline. 47, all cars are electric. No, but some are. 48, cancer is cured. Hopefully soon. 49, everyone lives to be at least 200 years old. Nope. 50, all wars are over. Keep dreaming. 51, we have universally accepted conflict resolution protocol. Well, we tried that with the UN. It didn't really work out. 52, there are no more human slavery anywhere. Well, not yet. That one I can't make a joke of, but it's, hopefully soon. God, it's incredible that that's still happening. Incredible. It's incredibly awful that it's still happening. 53, crime is brain malfunctions easily curable with a pill. Oh, wow, that would be cool, wouldn't it? I mean, it's not brain malfunction. There's differences in the brain that cause people to commit, and necessity, like there's crime and necessity. 54, everyone generates their own power and lives off the grid. We wish. 56, everyone grows all their own food. I mean, you could, but we don't. 56, we can stop tornadoes. 57, we can stop hurricanes. 58, everything is free. That's called the purge. 59, there is no more money. Technically, money is a construct. 60, money is all digital. That is true now. 61, there are no more countries. Oh, I would love that. That would make it so much easier. I could go back to England. 62, everyone speaks the same language. Oh, God. I mean, the English-speaking countries are so lazy. Like, we for sure will try and make it so that it's English. 63, translation earbuds allow for instantaneous translation. I think that they're near that. 64, we've made contact with intelligent aliens. Not yet. 65, robots clean everything. Roomba, baby. 66, all trash is converted to fuel. That is brilliant and would have made for a great sequel to WALL-E. 67, all power is wireless. Nearly. 68, the world population reaches 8 billion. Ha ha ha! Past that. 69, quantum computers. 70, tractor beams. 71, force fields. 72, nuke away spray that makes nuclear waste instantly safe. That is also a great sequel to WALL-E. 73, everyone is their own 24/7 TV channel that anyone else can watch. That is some Black Mirror crap. That is very scary and possibly accurate. Number 74, super strength. 75, fabric self-cleans. No washing machines. Oh, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? 76, sonic washing machines would also be great. 27, lost species, including dinosaurs brought back. That's Jurassic Park. 78, typing is done by thinking. Oh, I think we're very close to that. 79, lights and appliances respond to gestures. I mean, they respond to clapping. 80, all cars have crash avoidance braking. That is true. Not all, but some. 81, pizza lasts up to 3 years. It can if you have enough confidence and you microwave it with a glass of water. 82, every human has internet access. That's basically true. 83, there is no more hunger. Not true. Everyone has food and water. We wish, but not true. 84, relationships are great, easy, and accurate. Matchmaking. That will never happen. 85, we have a formula that integrates all fundamental forces in the universe. 86, we know what dark matter is. 87, we know what dark energy is. 88, we use neutrons to communicate. Interesting. 89, everybody has a job they enjoy. Haha, somebody pay me for something, please. 90, there is no more harassment. We're starting that with me too. 91, all addictions have been replaced with better ways to spend time. I'm desperately trying to do that. 91, everyone knows what everyone else is thinking. I don't think I would want to know that. 93, everyone has as much privacy as they want at all times. That was taken away from us forever. 94, all spiritual and religious differences are resolved. Ha! Number 95, woolly mammoths brought back from extinction. 96, every species in the earth is cataloged. Nearly. 97, the whole world uses the same units of measurement. I'm half Canadian and half American, so I'm just going to stay out of this one. 98, everyone has no cavities and perfect teeth. Oh, wouldn't that be incredible? 99, reverse microwaves to cool things. Oh, I love that idea. Let's get that going. And number 100, The 100 songs of Xeno are finally completed. Will any of these happen? Or will we all be eaten by ants? Stay tuned. That is all for this one. Thank you so much for listening to the Weird News Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to this show and to write a nice review and rate the episode. That really, really helps us move up. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You're welcome to follow me on any of those things as well. Thank you so much, and good night.